Echo chambers are no place to solve problems. When you have an echo chamber, you have no backstops for the worst impulses of a party. And in this state, we've seen that. We've seen what the worst impulses of Democrats with no check on their power has led to. We've seen the terrible bills that they've pushed through that have eroded public safety. We've seen the lies that they've been able to tell without consequence about things like the carbon tax, and now the intense pressure it's putting on working class people at the gas pump. Now, the consolidation of their power, it's not lost on them. They see it. And they are looking for opportunities actively to see how far they can take that power, to see what they can do to strengthen their power even further. And if you don't believe me, I want you to listen to these words from the chair of the Washington State Democratic Party, Shasti Conrad. She tweeted over the weekend, "With supermajorities, we can clean up the Constitution. My goal for 2026. With supermajorities, we can clean up the Constitution. My goal for 2026. If that doesn't terrify every single person who believes fundamentally that the government should answer to the people it serves, I don't know what would get you to be terrified and to take seriously the threat of one-party rule. That's the goal of the chair of the Washington State Democratic Party for 2026, is to achieve supermajorities above and beyond their current majorities so that they can clean up our state constitution. I didn't realize that it needed to be cleaned up. Now, that comment from her was in response to just some person on Twitter who was criticizing the Washington State Constitution, saying that there are entire sections that they'd like to strike, and specifically, they were talking about access to voting. And I just want to show you that because Shasti Conrad is going to try to change her, I guess, position on what it was that prompted her to say something so egregious, because that was her response when she responded to this person on Twitter talking about how the Washington State Constitution it just isn't very good, and she wants to change areas specific to voting. And that's when Shasti Conrad said, with supermajorities, we can clean up the Constitution, my goal for 2026. But then when she was criticized for her words by former House Minority Leader J.T. Wilcox, who's a Republican, but a very moderate Republican. I mean, so much so that he gets called a rhino all the time. So he had shared her comments and said this should provide some incentive to vote. You might not have your first choice at the top of the ticket, but the state D chair says you have everything at stake in the legislative elections. There's no limit to her appetite. So he shares her tweet, and then she changes her tune and claims, oh, it was about abortion. She says, yeah, I meant what I said. We need to enshrine reproductive rights in our state constitution. When the far-right R's are calling you pure evil, I guess you're onto something. So first of all, J.T. Wilcox is not far-right. This is a common tactic that is used to vilify reasonable Republicans. Again, there's truly far-right people who call him a rhino all the time. But now she goes to saying, oh, because she knows it's more politically popular, well, I want to enshrine abortion rights. No, that's not what you were talking about when you made the initial tweet. Again, this should terrify everyone, and specifically coming from this person. So Shasti Conrad, this is her first year as the chair of the Washington State Democratic Party. But keep in mind who she is and where she came from. Before taking that job, she was the chair of the King County Democratic Party. And while she was the chair of the King County Democratic Party, who did she endorse? Who did she support for the job of Seattle City Attorney? She endorsed Nicole Thomas Kennedy. Nicole Thomas Kennedy was the far-left fringe activist who ran against Republican Ann Davison. Now, thankfully, Republican Ann Davison won, but Shasti Conrad is so highly ideological, so focused on Republicans not winning anything, that instead of voting or saying, I'm not even going to take a position, she supported a candidate in Nicole Thomas Kennedy who called cops serial killers, who had tweets celebrating arson, who had tweets celebrating people who lit construction trailers on fire at the site of the youth jail, not even knowing whether human beings were inside those construction trailers. So this is a chair of the state Democratic Party who is so extreme. She openly supported the most extreme political candidate on the left that the state of Washington has ever seen. And that's saying a lot. And now she says her goal in 2026 is to work toward Democratic supermajorities so she can clean up the Washington state constitution. Is that the woman whose hands you want on the state constitution? Not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell. And you wonder why I am so absolutely opposed to one-party rule. You wonder why I have been supportive of some Republican candidates, despite the fact that I'm not a Republican myself. It is because if there's something that I'm more scared of than the absolute disaster that is the two-party system in this country, I am far more terrified of one-party rule. And that's what we have in Washington state, and it shows. So I will do everything within my power, any ounce of influence that I have in this state, to make sure that certainly Democrats don't get supermajorities in 2026. So Shasti Conrad, an absolute fringe leftist, cannot put her grubby hands on the state constitution. But also, I will do everything in my power with every ounce of influence that I have to make sure that there's a little bit of balance, in fact, in Washington state. So we can stop absolutely insane people like this from making any changes that are going to make our state even worse.